you're self-aware, right? You reflect, you journal, you read, you take responsibility, you're doing the work. But let me ask you this. Have you ever had that internal awareness that you experience ever turn on you? And what I mean by that is, have you ever become so aware that you end up feeling the volume of your judgments being turned really loud, maybe even feeling like it's a personal attack on yourself? So let's pause right there because you're not alone. Hi there and welcome. I'm Leezá Steindorf. I'm an award-winning author, an international speaker, a Forbes executive coach, and the creator of the Core Success System. And here's where we explore how clarity, ownership, resolution, and excellence empower you to live authentically and to lead consciously and to transform your life literally from the inside out. So if this message already resonates with you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who maybe is working with their awareness and not wanting it to be ammunition against themselves. All right, let's take it a bit deeper. Let's start with clarity. And I want you to be aware that clarity is not meant to wound you. Actually, the awareness that you're gaining should shed light on how amazing you are. And awareness is a very, very powerful tool. But when it's not finely calibrated with kindness and with compassion, it can become a weapon. And it's usually pointed at yourself, right? So clarity means seeing clearly, seeing clearly what's going on within yourself and recognizing the difference between insight and judgment. All right, insight, sight within, and then judging actually what you're becoming aware of. So if your awareness leads to curiosity, you're on the right track. But if it leads to shame or guilt or even self-loathing, that's not clarity or awareness, it's distortion, right? So let me define just two of those words. Let's start with guilt. Guilt is that, I mean, we talk about it, but we really often don't know what it is, right? So guilt is that sinking feeling that you've done something wrong. You don't quite know what, but gosh, you should have done it better or you should have known better. And shame is that sucker punch feeling that you get that there's something wrong with you, that you as a person are not okay. And neither one of those are a fact. They're feelings and they can hijack you and they can infiltrate your awareness when it's starting to grow because your awareness, your insight into yourself is when you become clearer. And then we see things we could have done better, or we didn't do well, or we wish we could have redone or not done at all. And then there's a tendency or a risk that we start attacking ourselves for that. Okay, but there's a way out. There's a way to get beyond those judgments so that you can see your behavior clearly without condemning yourself for it. That you can acknowledge your patterns without making yourself wrong for having them and without identifying with them. Like, this is who I am because I do this. There's a training that I offer on my website, The Genius of Non-Judgment. It's really powerful and it's been a practice of mine because I was the world's worst self-critic. I really, I was harder on myself than anybody else could have been. And I was miserable. I made myself miserable with all that awareness. And then I will never forget literally the day I was walking up a hill. It was in the high in the mountains. And I remember looking up at this tree with a blue sky behind it. And I thought, wow, I really like who I am. Like, that was an epiphany for me. So if I'd have had that earlier in my life, in different situations, how much easier that would have been. So that's an invitation as you become clear, as you start growing your awareness, is to recognize the goodness and the things that you are also becoming aware of that you could have done better or wish you could recreate. Take ownership of that, and we're going to go right into that in a second. And then be kind to yourself as you become aware. Okay? Your awareness should open doors to yourself and not make you feel like you're in a prison of self-doubt or self-dislike. All right, let's talk about ownership and how becoming aware with ownership brings you back to compassion and to owning your goodness, right? So when self-awareness spirals into self-attack, It's usually because we've internalized voices that were either never ours to begin with, or we just heard them so often, right? As children, we've heard, you're not okay, and how could you? Why you don't know enough? And what I was always told is, you don't know what you're talking about, right? So ownership means claiming all of yourself, only what belongs to you and not nothing else, right? So other people's voices, other opinions that you've heard, they don't belong to you unless you want to take them in and own them. And you don't need to do that. So you are not responsible for others. You're responsible for yourself. And you are also not, how should I say? You are not what other people tell you you are. You alone are the author of who you are. You get to say who you are. And that means you also get to own your worthiness. So ownership invites you to ask the question, whose voice is this that I'm hearing, right? And the one that says I should know better, the one that says I'm still not enough, or that says I should be further along by now. Whose voices are they, right? They often come from childhood, from culture, from past relationships, and they echo often more loudly than the one that you know, I'm good the way I am, right? So ownership is when you finally say yes to yourself. And you can say, I am good as I am. I am more than enough. I like me. That's okay. It feels a little scary. And sometimes people think, oh, that's arrogant to like yourself. Why would that be arrogant? People that like themselves are actually a lot nicer and kinder to other people because they're not so angry and lashing out all the time. So owning your goodness really uplevels your happiness and your ability to be kind to others. And you get to choose which voice stays within you. So make sure compassion and self-kindness is the one that's the loudest, the one you hear the most clearly. All right, let's talk about resolution. So as we speak about resolution here, it's that we bring together points of character or of ourselves, of our actions that aren't aligned, right? There's dissonance or there's conflict. So we bring those together in resolution. And in truth, growth isn't perfect. It's messy. It includes setbacks and contradictions and mistakes, and often the more aware we become initially, the more challenging life can feel. Okay, so if you imagine, if you draw on a piece of paper, you draw 2 points, right? And then you put your pen down on one point and you close your eyes, and then you start moving your pen. Most likely, that pen is going to go all over the page. It's not going to be a straight line toward that other point, but the direction is going to be right. You know what direction you're moving in, right? So aligning your efforts with the value you know you have is what resolution means here. It's that you bring parts of yourself together instead of tearing them apart. And resolution happens when you stop performing, when you start trying to be more or different than what you are, and you recognize who you are, right? There's the ownership, and then you be that, you inhabit that. You don't owe the world a polished, perfect picture frame version of yourself or of your growth. And you don't have to showcase anything in order to prove that I'm doing the work and look at what I've accomplished. You don't have to do that. Sometimes, sure you can relate to this, sometimes the deepest healing and the biggest insights, they're quiet. Like you just sit there and it's like, wow. Give yourself that gift and integrate that, right? And it's something maybe like the decision to not spiral out again or to not give in to an urge or to refrain from doing something you usually would, or to take action on something you usually wouldn't. And that's valid and that's enough. So you can release that need to do it right. You're growing, you're evolving, period. All right, let's talk about when you're growing to the best of your ability, when you're acting and loving and speaking from your highest and best, that's your excellence. The way that I define it, it's knowing and living from the highest and the best of yourself. It's not about always being aware. It is about always being real. And when you are real with yourself, you bring your best. You bring it to this moment. And sometimes that's messy. Sometimes your best in the moment isn't the best ever. But if you're bringing your best right now, that is your excellence. And when you're coming from your highest and best in every circumstance, no matter what, that's your excellence. So it's important to know there is no end goal, right? A lot of people think that excellence is if we watch the Olympics or we see master artists or whatever it is, and we think, oh, I'm only going to feel my excellence and live my excellence when I'm way down the road. Not so. You are a living, breathing, evolving human. You are not a project, and you're not a theory that has to get it right. You're actually a soul that is remembering itself. And sometimes it's graceful and sometimes it's super clumsy. I am a perfect example of that. So excellence means honoring that full spectrum of your experience, all your light and what they call shadows, the challenging parts, and also the joyous parts and the clear parts and the messy parts, your learning curves, your victories, your mistakes, all of it, right? It's honoring all of that and consistently coming back again and again to bring your highest and your best, to live from that place. And then you can let your awareness serve you and not shame you. All right? So let's remember, self-awareness is not intended to shrink you and make you feel small. That awareness actually should let you light up and free you to be all of who you are. Because when you start to see yourself, there's a lot more than the mistakes you think you've made. There's so much goodness there, and you don't have to be afraid to own that. And when it begins to feel like punishment, then you got to soften. When you start to see things and you take yourself to task, then take a break. So here's a practice for you. The next time you feel that you must do more or you're not okay because your awareness has shown you something, I invite you to pause and breathe and just find a place in yourself that you can feel love for yourself. That's all. You don't need to do anything else. And just whatever comes next, let that unfold. So pause and breathe and come to the place of loving yourself, even if it's a smidgen. Okay? So if you've been hard on yourself in the name of growth, let this be your invitation to shift. And like this video, subscribe to the channel for more guidance. And yeah, you can find your own truth here and compassion and support to be who you are. And you can share this video with someone else who may also need some reminders. So until next time, clarity, ownership, resolution, excellence. You're not behind, you're not doing it wrong, you are becoming and you are doing it beautifully. Be well.